Okay, today we are playing again on Numbani. We are in the gold SR range, and we will be playing Junkrat the entire way through. We are also on the console today, so consider yourself forewarned. Current team composition is D.Va, Zarya, Junkrat, Mei, Genji, and Moira. So we've got one of the classic bad tank combos of Zarya D.Va. One of those that's along the same lines as Roadhog Zarya. It's just two off-tanks pretending that one of them is a main tank. You know, it's what happens when basically both people on the team go, I know we have to have two tanks, but I don't really want to pick a tank, so I'm just gonna pick someone that's barely a tank, right? So then I'm appeasing people, but I'm not playing like Reinhardt, right? So I'm having a good time still, just to the detriment of everybody else. And then we've also only got one healer. It's at least a main healer, so we got that going for us, which is nice. It's not like Lucio or something, so that's cool. Moira struggles a little bit on Numbani because of how much high ground there is, at least on the first checkpoint. So it leaves a lot to be desired, compositionally. So anyway, let's just start the game. So we gotta attack Numbani first, which can be a very arduous endeavor indeed. Just depends basically on how hard it is for you to capture the first checkpoint, I find. But then you got the third checkpoint at the end as well, which is also always very enjoyable. So we ran into Genji right there. He didn't really do a lot. He was just standing there menacingly, and then he just kind of left. So hey, didn't have to get into a real tussle with him, and boy, he just, like, let that one happen. I love, personally, how it just, like, tinks off his head first. Like, it just... Why doesn't it do, like, 1 damage if it hits him on the head? Like, come on. Bang. Right on the head. So, anyway, I liked that. And that's basically gonna... Well, I mean, it should have dissuaded him, but he decided he wanted to press his luck a little bit more and tripped over a bomb. Playing Junkrat and you throw a concussive mine at a flanker, the flanker should stop trying to kill you at that point, unless the concussive mine did, like, minimum damage or something, because, oh boy, is that, like, half your health otherwise. So, we've lost our only healer, which is very bad, but they've already lost half their team by this point, so even though we lost our main healer, it is far from the end of the world. Don't bother chucking the mine at her in, like, that situation, because to be honest with you, unless she is, like, about to lose her mech, chances are it does nothing but save her. Because, if it doesn't kill him and it just bounces him around the room, then D.Va might just get away, especially after having been frozen, the benefit of which is they aren't really moving. If you don't know it's gonna kill the person, be careful when you chuck the mine at them, you can end up accidentally saving them. We are currently being kind of aggro, with 87 hit points going all this way up. And we don't even need to show ourselves to the enemy team, right? We're playing Junkrat. We get to pretend that we're artillery, because that's kind of what we are. Oh, she was waiting for it. She got it. We get to just pretend we're artillery. So we don't even have to look at the enemy team, right? We could have just been shelling at them from out of line of sight the entire time. But then we walked forward and we got shot. Life is hard sometimes. So, was that their Genji I just saw? No, it was our Genji. Alright. I just heard Genji shooting, basically, and I was like, well, shooting. And I was like, is that their Genji? No, it's not. Oh, their Widow is using an interesting strategy down there, isn't she? Just machine gunning away, tripped right over it. Oh. Well, there's Genji. Well, that's that problem solved. No more Genji. So we've almost got Riptire built up. That's pretty cool. They probably, like, have basically 0 ult charge built up, to be honest with you. They've not been having a good time up until this point. And, it's not necessarily going to get any better for them. Same deal as before. It's not going to kill this guy. Chucking the mine at him doesn't really accomplish anything. And now we don't have a mine. So that's kind of scary, seeing as we know there's a Roadhog right over there. What if he came around the corner and tried to hook us and we don't have the mine to get away? I mean, the Roadhog was doing some real stupid shit, so it was unlikely to come back and bite us, and hey, you don't get punished, you don't have to learn, that's what I always say, but, still, mine wasn't going to accomplish much, so be careful how you use it, pretty much. So, they've got a Winston and a Hanzo. This could, theoretically be a... Oh, unfortunate. Could theoretically be bad for us, but, They're having a lot of issues right now. I'm not sure what we're looking for right now. Have we heard someone? I did hear Genji deflecting. Not sure what we're looking for. We're probably looking for Genji. That's what would make sense for us to be looking for. Don't know what this mine was about, because, I mean, we're in a real confined location. It's not like it's going to get us very far away, and Winston wasn't that far forward, so I'm not sure what that one was really going to accomplish, other than, I guess, just kind of being annoying to Winston. So we've lost our healer immediately in this fight. They aren't down half their team already, so this team fight's now looking pretty bad, because we've got no staying power. We are being pretty conservative right now by staying, like, this far in, because we don't even know where the enemy team are right now. Like, we got no clue if these bombs are going anywhere in the vicinity of the enemy team, because we just don't know where they are right now. So we're being, like, real conservative right there. I don't like using Riptire right now. Half the team was already dead. Our main healer was dead, so I was already basically gave up on that fight. And then we commit our ultimate to it anyway, like, after more people were dead as well, so I don't want to use Riptire right there. Rather save it for a fight that we've actually got a chance to win. Ooh, oof, oof. God, he's so bad. He's so bad. What's his name? What the fuck's his name? Ivanovic Keto 041? Okay. He's not very good at Genji, but I mean, he's apparently one of the most Russian men to ever exist, so he should really just be playing Zarya. Anyway, so we don't have Riptire to use anymore, and that's very upsetting. We're going a little bit more aggro now, actually looking at the enemy team. This is a pretty scary place to be standing, just because we are looking, like, right at a Roadhog right now, pretty much. Because, like, if this Roadhog's got his hook, it's pretty easy for him to hook us right here. It's not like we were really playing, like this is better, because now it's harder for a Roadhog to... What the fuck? Alright, well, I didn't, you know, life... You know, the arrow keys are very close to 0 on the numpad, so sometimes bad things happen. Now we're not far forward enough. Oh my god. So alright, now we're back. So this is better, like positioning more like this, because it's harder for Roadhog to just hook us now, right? Because we're using the top of the door frame as cover. Because we don't need to look directly at the enemy team as Junkrat. This, not so good. Because we're just, like, in full view of the entire enemy team. Not as good. Much easier to die doing that. Now, much better. Now they can't really see us. And that's the goal for Junkrat, really. Maximize doing as much DPS as possible from where the enemy team can't even see you, ideally. Because that's the advantage Junkrat's got over a lot of people in this game. He does not need line of sight to his targets, so... You get to abuse some very interesting cover as Junkrat. Like, no other DPS gets to use the top of a door frame for cover, but Junkrat does. So, there's currently a Hammond spinning around the point. Go chuck the trap in front of that. Just, like, go over there and chuck the trap around roughly where he's spinning around to try and stop him doing that. He stops doing it anyway, but, like, the Junkrat trap will really fuck a Hammond up when he's doing that kind of thing. Hammond, I think, is still alive. Is Hammond still alive? We've trapped someone. Oh, it's a Bastion. Didn't quite kill him with the mine. Man, he really committed to that. He just came down out of the sky in turret form. He's like, fuck it. This is how we engage, I guess, now. Thanks, Junkrat. Oh, Junkrat, that was rude. Oh, here comes Roadhog. Hey, what's he gonna do? He's gotta, like, run right past us to touch the point. So, you know. It went pretty well for us. And as you can see, the rest of the video isn't very short, so, or isn't very long, rather. Exact opposite of what I said. So, yeah, we're probably not gonna play multiple rounds on this map, right? You know, unless they end up passing real fucking fast. So, what are we doing right here? Okay, we didn't go that far up. Oh yeah, this is a classic Junkrat cheese strat right here. One of my favorite clips ever was on King's Row, and Junkrat's just hiding behind the first checkpoint defense. He's just hiding behind, like, that very small piece of masonry on the left side of the gate. and he just like crouches down under that with his with this emote, and it just pops up behind the enemy team and ganks them. It's a classic strategy. So we see triggered, and we immediately get right up again, and we haven't really accomplished very much, and to be honest with you, we were never particularly likely to. I think they're 5v6 right now, so we're probably feeling a little braver. We shouldn't be doing any of what we were just doing, though. Like, all of what we just did up until this point, extremely high risk of death for not very much in the way of reward, to be honest with you. Like, pretty high risk for meh reward, right? Not a very good, strategy. But hey, we didn't get punished, we don't have to learn. Genji remains incapable of killing us, apparently. Oh, we really want this Healy Orb? Yeah, there we go. Oh, there it goes. Oh, sad. So we don't really want to be down in the street. Being down in the street is awfully scary, because if somebody just, like, comes around the corner behind us, they gank us and they kill us. Still not super good at the mine jumps. We've watched this person play before, and I mean, we're not a dramatically higher level than when we previously saw them, so you know. We're still not super good at the mine jumping, but it's something that takes time to get used to. It's a fairly unusual method of movement, right? So, Genji went up and died. I'm basically just going back, like, what happened? Alright, Genji died, D.Va died, half our team's dead, yeah. This was gonna have to be a pretty sick tire to save this point, and, I wouldn't have gone for it. Silver lining, we got, trance out of the enemy Zenyatta, so that's nice, but I wouldn't have gone for the, tire right there, because it would literally have to kill, like, the entire enemy team, feasibly, to stop them. And, hey, it turns out the enemy team is just really bad, so we're just gonna kind of get away with it anyway, right? It's, like, if it was if they had 6 people right now, we'd have lost this objective, but, you know, hey, sometimes you don't get punished for things going badly, and that's just the dream as far as Overwatch goes, isn't it? Yeah, so we just get to keep the point, even though we have no claim to it, really. Half our team, well, a third of our team went and fed right at the beginning. There goes Yvonne. Look, we can see how this is going to go from here, so we're just going to go and address the email section of the video now, because this game, you know, you've got 2.5 minutes left. We know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen, so we're just going to move over to the email. So, in the email, there's 2 questions. Well, one's just a general thing, but it's still a question. It just doesn't have a question mark at the end of it. This time around, I'd like to know tips about fighting other DPS heroes or ways to work around them, such as Ashe, Hanzo, etc. So I assume by the examples, you basically mean the long-range DPS as Junkrat. Because, I mean, the flankers are relatively easy to deal with as Junkrat, right? You put the trap behind you, or, like, on a flanking path to try and deal with them, and then, you know, hopefully they just step on it because they're bad. If they're good, they'll find a way around it, but you use that to look for them, and you just try and keep a concussive mine in your pocket, basically, because that should fend off any flanker that tries and comes for you, because it's at least half their health, probably, right? If you just get them with the concussive mine, and that's the point where a flanker is like, alright, I'm just gonna disengage at this point, because Junkrat doesn't have to try very hard to kill me from this point. Long-range DPS are kind of an issue for Junkrat, because it's difficult for him to get to them, and the mines get less and less good the further you are away from the target. So the goal really is just to not expose yourself to them, pretty much, because, or as little as possible anyway. Just try and avoid their lines of sight until they're in a position where you can feasibly get them, because I mean, like, Hanzo isn't super long range, right? Like, he's more mid-range, and they usually get pretty close to the fight as it goes by, so Hanzo will just, like, come up to you eventually. People like Widowmaker and Ashe, you've got no real way of dealing with them as Junkrat, unless you do some real sick flanking or concussive plays to get to them, right? Like, you got not much else you can do. You basically just try and avoid them as much as possible. which isn't that hard to do. It just basically means playing more passively, and just trying to avoid going out in line of sight as much as possible. Doing more geometry off the walls, doing more just spamming into the choke points and all that without really exposing yourself to them, because they definitely have the advantage over you. But it's a very common question for the long-range hit-scan DPS. How do I deal with a Junkrat player that is playing cautiously and not just coming out in line of sight to me? And the answer is, you can't really do anything to them, because you're playing a hero like Ashe and Widowmaker, right? So there's not a lot you can do. If the Junkrat just doesn't expose himself to you, there's nothing you can do, because you need to see people to hit him. Junkrat doesn't need to see people to hit him. So that's what you really do with the long-range hit scan, or just the long-range DPS, I should say, in general. Some of them you can still do stuff to, like, McCree gets pretty close to the fight, Hanzo gets pretty close to the fight, but like Ashe, Widow, Soldier, they're usually pretty far away from the fight. There's not a lot you can do to them. You can, depending on the map, because if you're on, like, Numbani, in, like, second checkpoint, you can just, like, go around one of the side routes to get, like, on them, and it doesn't really take that much time to do it. So, like, you can kind of get to them, depending on the map as Junkrat, but you're generally better off avoiding them. So that's pretty much it for the long range. And then the flankers, it's pretty much, you know, try and keep a concussive mine on you, because that'll fend them off, and try to use your trap to, either fend them off or watch certain routes. Because there are some maps where you can't really flank Junkrat if he puts the trap in, like, a decent place, because it's just not very easy to get around the trap. I'm thinking of, like, Hanamura, specifically, second checkpoint. You stand up, like, on the left side on defense, just, like, put the trap behind you on the staircase, and that's it. That's, like, the way they get to you unexpectedly, pretty much. They slip through the side door when you're not looking and come up behind you. So, like, if you just got a trap behind you, they can't really get around it. And then suddenly they can't sneak up on you anymore at that point, and that negates a lot of the risk from most flankers. And then, you know, if the DPS is Pharah, you can't do anything. Alright, you can't do anything to that DPS as Junkrat. It's just, you know, you can't do it all. That's Junkrat's weakness, but that's what you do with the long-range DPS, pretty much. You just try and avoid them as much as possible, or try and get to them if the map will let you. But even then, like, that's a risky strategy, so be careful when doing that one. And then the other question is... There's kind of two other questions. Another thing I would like to ask is when to approach the payload. I feel a bit odd sometimes not ever really touching it the entire game, and I feel I should be present more. Could just be the Rhine in me, I suppose. I mean, that's what we got DPS for. That's what we got tanks for. We got DPS for a different thing, that's doing damage. But, like, if you don't have to go stand on the payload, don't go stand on the payload. If you don't have to go stand on the point, don't go stand on the point, right? Like, that's what the tanks are for. There's nothing wrong with, like, especially if you're playing a DPS like Junkrat, who can do stuff from pretty far away still, right? There's nothing wrong with you never actually going and touching the point, to be honest. Like, that's what the tanks are for. Sometimes you'll be in a position where, like, you're the one person left behind on the payload to touch it. Like, no one else wants to touch it, so yeah, you gotta go touch it. But if you don't have to, like, it's not a I'm gonna lose the round situation if I don't go touch it, or, like, no one else wants to touch it situation. Like, if somebody else is touching it, you let them touch it. You don't have to go stand on it. That's what the tanks are for. They contest the objectives. So, nothing wrong with you standing further back and, just covering a wider area, basically. And, like, certain DPS, like, that's exactly what they want to do. Like, if you're playing, like, Soldier or Ashe, you really don't want to stand on the point. You want to be standing behind the payload or behind the point, because then you've got a wider view of the area, so you get to leverage your long-range DPS, right? So, depending on the character you're playing, you really don't want to touch the payload. So, no, don't worry about it too much, to be honest with you. You know, like, if you gotta, like, someone's gotta touch it, or we're gonna lose the point, the round, the game, whatever, no one else wants to touch it, go touch it. Someone else is touching it, yeah, I don't have to touch it, they're touching it. So don't worry about it too much, basically. You know, if you play tanks, I understand, you know, you build up that muscle memory of go touch the point, right? But the DPS don't really want to if they don't have to. Same for supports. If you don't have to, don't, but the support players usually get a little bit more forced into it than a DPS would, because they have to actually, like, support the tanks, right? So, like, Moira kind of has to touch the point a lot of the time if she's going to heal the tanks. So, you know, they get a little bit more forced into it than DPS players do. And then, finally, I sometimes find it too hard to approach Koth and 2CP objectives in specific maps. One example of being the Temple of Anubis. Dude, that's just life right there. That's those maps. They're very difficult to attack. The Koth maps, I mean, it depends on the Koth map. I kind of need you to be a little bit more specific on that, because certain Koth maps are, like, really different to the other ones, because, like, Sanctum is completely different to, like, City Center on, Oasis, right? Like, those two maps play completely differently, so... Like on Oasis, University is completely different to City Center, and City Center is pretty different to Garden at the same time. So I kind of need, like, you'd be a little bit more specific on the King of the Hill one. The 2CP maps, that's those maps, to be honest with you. Like, they're very, they are very snowball focused, pretty much. Like, the attackers, you pretty much either snowball it, or you spend what feels like days grinding at the objective. And the thing is, it's just that the 2CP maps have, like, very hard choke points, pretty much. Like, Temple of Anubis, Hanamura, two of the hardest choke points in the entire game to get through, as far as I'm concerned. Because there's just not very many options for the attackers, and the defenders have got, like, a really good position to stand in, pretty much. Like, Hanamura, first checkpoint, Jesus Christ, it's a fucking nightmare if the defenders don't do something stupid, or your team isn't really good, right? It's a fucking nightmare to get in. It's this kind of thing that it is difficult to solve the problem as an individual player, because the issue with approaching 2CP maps is usually one related to, like, teamwork as a whole, because it tends to be the tanks are too afraid to go through, or the DPS are not doing enough to relieve pressure, people are focusing badly, they're not going in all at once, people are lagging behind, people are getting walled off by Mei. It's something that's difficult for just one person to really solve the problem. Because it's almost always a teamwork thing. Like, basically, it's most of the time, the team doesn't go through the door together. Only a couple of people go through. So then the attackers are just like 2 people here, 2 people here, 2 people here. And the defenders can just, like, clap one group of them, and then the fight's immediately in the other side's favor, right? So, I don't know that I have that much advice for a single player, really, like, by yourself to try and deal with that situation. The best thing you can probably do is, depending on what's going on, if they're picking, like, if they're playing, like, a bunker comp, or, like, a bastion comp, picking someone like Junkrat's pretty good, because you can just punish them for being really close together, pretty much. Help burn the shields and all that, good stuff. But, like, if they're not doing that kind of thing, the best thing you can really do is, as, like, a single player, and I'll assume from, like, the DPS position, seeing as that's what we're playing right now, the best you can really do is, like, pick a flanker. Sombra, in particular, is really good for 2CP maps. And pretty much harass the shit out of their backline. Like, try and draw attention away from the choke point, because if you are behind the enemy team and you're drawing back, like, 2 or 3 people away from the choke point, that makes it a lot easier for the 5 people on your team to get through the choke point, if they only have to focus on pushing through 4 or 3 people rather than 6 people. That's probably the best you can do as an individual player. You know, you can try and, like, coordinate your teammates, but, I mean, right, like, it's Overwatch, so good luck with that one, pretty much. Because, I mean, you can try and coordinate them, try and get them to go through the choke point together, try and, like, get them to coordinate ultimates and stuff like that, but that's going to be a real hit or miss for you. Or just play a hero that's good at picking people off for the same reason as before. You can kind of just, like, do it by yourself, pretty much. You don't need much help to pick someone off, necessarily. You're playing someone like Widowmaker, Hanzo, Pharah even, Roadhog even, right? Like, it's not hard for you to pick someone off by yourself, and then that makes it easier for your teammates, because you by yourself have made the fight uneven in your favor, theoretically, right? So it's kind of the best you can do as an individual player, and that's pretty much the best I got for you. That's just kind of the nature of 2CP maps. They're really hard to attack. It's unfortunate, but, like, there's no great answer for you on that one, because it's usually a teamwork issue, and there's no great fix for that if your team doesn't want to work with you, pretty much. And the Koth one, just, you know, just, like, comment, whatever, try, like, more specific examples of the Koth maps that give you trouble, because the answer could vary greatly, depending on which Koth maps we're talking about. So yeah, that's what I got for you, pretty much. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you felt I answered your questions from the email inadequately, please let me know, and I will try to expand further. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 7 PM EST till 10 or 11 EST, depending on how it goes. There's a link to the channel in the description. If you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.